So, by way of a very simple introduction of a context, there was some significant sea change back in 2019 when the Council decided to take a biodiversity emergency motion through Council. And that was a catalyst for a significant change, a cultural change, a shift in political attitudes, as well as the terms of feedback from local people. Now, at that point, we were using glyphosate to treat weeds on streets, parks, open space, and the whole city was basically washed with it in 2 or 3 applications a year. There was a significant amount of local and national pressure at the time, 2019, around the use of glyphosate, around the impacts of its use, and I think you'll all be aware of it. And perversely, the HQ for glyphosate was on our doorstep in Campbell, so we had an ongoing dialogue with them. So what I'd like to do, just in terms of context, herbicide-free has a whole range of meanings for different people. It could mean anything for a number expressed in different ways. So what I'd like to do is to get you all to have a go at trying to express what you believe as being herbicide-free. So I'm going to do that using a product called menti.com, which you can all use on your phone. You've all got internet phones, enabled phones. If you just pop them out, put that website into the browser. What they'll then do, they'll give you, ask you for a code. I'm hoping the code hasn't changed overnight because it did the other day. But if you no one can access it, we'll go and see what's wrong with it. Working. Excellent. So if you can just take a minute to answer that question, I'm going to swap the screens. Okay. Well, it is working, but it's not very slow. You can hardly read that. So in terms of what it's saying here, in terms of no chemicals, biodiverse, let's go again. Okay, this is not good. You might have to leave this little bit of the exercise, I think. Okay, let's come back again. So it's talking here about not spraying weeds, about zero use of chemicals, about cost reduction in public fields, about non-chemical methods of need management, non-use of pesticides. There's certainly a theme here about chemical and the use of chemical, which is quite insightful. Yeah, so we're getting certainly a theme started to emerge here around not spraying and around chemicals. We'll come on to the next one. So just going back to this range of views and range of opinions, particularly political opinions, we did get the turning point was not only the 2019 motion, but the 2021 motion, which was about eradication of herbicides, which we moved to eliminate those in the use of parks and open spaces. So our first hit was all our open spaces. We stopped applying herbicides, and for a period that was fairly successful, but we started to get pushback, particularly from members of the public, around just presentation, aesthetics, and about the fact it didn't look particularly well. So this is when we started to look at potential alternatives around some of the products you're going to see today and you're going to hear about today. We also aligned the work to our environment, ISO 14001, to whom has got that in terms of management systems, so we could build in and safeguard. The other item here was about getting the cross-party consensus. We're very lucky in Cambridge. We had a Liberal Democrat and a Labour, two parties. We could get the consensus. We've now got a broader range now of colours, particularly around green. And that has helped us. And I think what I would say here, this wasn't just about an environmental project, it was very much around this sort of city value statement, a change in attitudes towards the use of herbicides and in some respects some pesticides. Along the way, we worked with some key stakeholders. I've listed them on the slide here, and you can see some of the work they're doing. So I was talking before about some of the campaigns and some of the the pressures around 2019 from local groups and also national groups. And you can see some of the particular picture on the right-hand side here of the impact of using herbicides on particularly hard verges impact. So the Pesticide-Free Cambridge and On the Verge, these groups were they're campaigning groups, and they were eventually our design partners, and they helped us with some of the responses to how we deal with the wrong use of herbicides. So the Pesticide Cambridge was instrumental in advocating the elimination of pesticides in the open spaces. It also successfully influenced a citywide cessation of the herbicide applications, and it also helped to empower local people to take responsibility for streets and start to manage streets, and we'll touch on in a little minute where we went with that direction. They also launched a pesticide-free schools campaign, which is really successful in Cambridgeshire, in eradicating the use of pesticides in schools. The other group, which is On the Verge, may have connections with very much around enhancing urban biodiversity and around increasing pollinators and pollinator-friendly environments. Again, another key stakeholder, and really important in terms of getting a cultural shift. So people, rather than saying this, actually start to see something a little bit more biodiverse, more rich, environmentally rich. Okay. It's a fairly rigid structure we followed, purely because of the political requirements for this. We had a project initiation document. You're not going to be able to read some of this stuff on here, but it just shows a level of detail, granular detail we had to go into to be able to move this forward. That's my health and safety rep. We also included, started some task and finishes groups, specific things we wanted to look at. Again, we used Pesticide-Free Cambridge and frontline staff to devise new methods of working. Significant change from something that takes 2 or 3 minutes to clear by sweep with a herbicide to a product you might have to walk behind or push behind, or you have to sweep up behind. All those methods need integration, new integrations, new risk assessments, new methods of working, staff training, all that needs to be thought through. So the point I'd make here is, if you are making that journey, is to make sure you map it. The mapping is quite critical in making sure you've got the key steps. At the start of the project, we only picked a couple of wards, namely because we were a bit anxious about targeting the whole city. The two of the wards we picked are distinctly different. So Arbury is 1960s high density homes, lots of monoblock, lots of paving, and lots of weeds. Yeah. Newnham, which is more of a Victorian terrace town, tight streets, old cobbles, old yolkstone, completely different environments. The reason we chose the two is to get a comparison between how they would both respond. Okay. So in terms of alternatives we tried, I think we've been through the whole gambit, if I'm being honest. We've gone through weed brushes, sweepers, manual extraction, hot foam, we've used hot air, we've used electric. But what we also have done is allowed people to start to maintain their own streets using a thing called Happy Bee Street, which is a product of the work we did with the stakeholders, with Pesticide-Free Cambridge, and with the On the Verge. So it's very much about encouraging people to sign up to have their street, allowed to maintain their own street. So one example is there's a street in Cambridge now where we have someone who goes around and they actually draw chalk around the plants and write what they are. Typically Cambridge, yeah, it's all Latin, no common names. But again, that's a great way of just engaging local people to let people understand why we're doing what we're doing. So a great call out for a lady called Anne Rington, and she's done a lot for us in terms of just raising awareness of why we're changing the from herbicides. Right. Do we want to do this task or do we move on? What do you think? Well, I think shall we sideswipe this? I mean, because venture detail is obviously with the internet, it's
just make sure you sign up to try them all in the next few weeks. That's
yeah. Yeah. Well, give this a miss. But the reason I was going to just do this in terms of there's so many products out there, and there's so many ways, different approaches to how you want to do it. I mean, each will fit different scenarios. So the point I'd make here, Barton Road, Cambridge, probably a mile long. Spray that will probably take you a couple of hours in the morning. Yeah. Now it takes us good morning to do it, but how we do it this time is we just scrub out. We have the tunnel sweeper behind and we clear up behind us. It's really quite simple, 22 machine operation, same effect, but without herbicide. All right, we're burning fuel, we're burning equipment, we've got an expensive capital expense, but we're not using those herbicides. So we'll step past that one. Okay. So in terms of the key results from the trial, oddly enough, we had a reduction in complaints, even though we had more weed growth. There was certainly a strong resident support for the aesthetics trade-offs, so people culturally were moving and shifting away from having to see stark grey materials. Quite happy to see, although there have been a few garden escapes on pavement sides. We did spend a lot of time with the mechanical methods. Mechanical methods have an indirect benefit in you're actually deep cleaning. You're actually taking away loads of detritus and taking away what people actually think the weeds are actually growing. Just this week, just as typically Cambridge, lots of scientists in Cambridge, someone has actually collected a range of sweepings from the road and had those analysed, and they've sent me an email going, so what are we going to do about this then? Because it's full of heavy metals, magnetic metals, and their concerns was about washing into chalk streams, like we used to have with glyphosate, washing into streams. We've now got the issue of all this detritus, build-up of muck, that's actually washing into the chalk streams. So I'm looking forward to having to reply to that. We didn't advance hot foam. The reasons why we didn't advance the hot foam are purely because it didn't fit our working operation. So hot foam would have a place in a play area. You turn up, you do the fence line, you probably do the safety surfacing, but it's no good on tight streets where you've got cars parked. You can't work around it. You're using lots of potable water generally. There's an energy source to heat it up. It just didn't fit right with us in terms of being that environmentally friendly. It certainly didn't fit the EMS model, the 14001 model. Okay. Challenges. This is all we do is resourcing and staffing. There was a resistance to a move away from herbicides, but once we understood what the resistance was, and I'll share that with you, it was to do with overtime. So spraying streets is done in the morning, done in the evening, and there's no one about, and guess what? We pay overtime. And people didn't want to lose that overtime. That was one of the biggest cultural shifts from Cambridge Council in terms of bringing staffing on board. So in terms of, it does take more time, there are more repeated visits, and there is a range of staff activities. It's a very repetitive task, but if you switch staff around, you are able to do it in a fairly methodical way. The complaints around untidy pavements, we do get those. We're into June now. We've had a fairly dry spring. We haven't got too much, but I suspect in a few weeks' time we're going to start to get the influx of the complaint. So we have got is a programme of activity that's on the website that people can see when we're coming to you next. We're just basically moving around the city in a methodical way. So if anyone's got concerns, we can point them to say we'll be here in a few weeks. So another challenge is, I can put it politely, so the County Council. County Council, big organisation, a whole range of different pressures than the District Council, social care, health care, transport, highways. And our County Council did try to go herbicide-free, but reverted back, purely because of cost. So we do have a little bit of difficulty coordinating with the County Council around things like slurry top, when they're coming to put on a slurry top on pavements. They like to come in, treat beforehand, and then work the surface before and then leave. We've tried to discourage them from doing that. We want to be herbicide-free. That's taken a little bit of work, but I think we are there. The other thing from us in terms of challenges, data and costs. Other than having freedom of information requests, where are you? There you are. Freedom of information requests is very rarely we know how much we applied, how much it's cost, when it's been put. So that data is really important before you start off on your project. So you can at least track costs, see where you're incurring costs, but also that data did allow us to put a capital bid in for new equipment. So we got £186,000 for new equipment last year, which paid for some of the equipment you'll see outside, and some hayco brushes and some various other bits. So data, really important to get you the information to allow you to get new equipment. Okay, I won't dwell on this one, I'm mindful of time. I mean, the community involvement here was paramount. Those volunteering schemes, things like Happy Bay Street, all the communication, again, that in itself is an industry. The actual comms and managing people and managing stakeholder expectations, web page content, news releases, material for putting in magazines, all that needs time, and all that needs to be factored into anything you're planning working through. It really is paramount to get that correct and work with something. We've got a fairly strong team with Cambridge City Council, very fortunate, and they do quite a lot of that work for me. But it does pay dividends in the end because it brings your stakeholders with you. We'll miss that. So in terms of what would have helped us, we're on reflection, thinking back, what would have helped us? And I think some of it we've seen emerging today, which is this roadmap or incentives, or some form of who's done it before, where is it, what can we use. The County Council district approaches and relationships, that was difficult to navigate. I suspect that's going to come full 360, because when we've got local government review in 2 years' time, the same questions are going to be asked again. It's going to come right round, full 360. Finding the money. It took some persuasion, but fairly fortunate. I'm very fortunate with Cambridge. We are a fairly capital-rich authority. We've got large investments, so drawing down money was achievable. We have a policy where we've got a 10-year payback investment. We'll invest. So Don, who's in the gallery, was very successful in getting some papers and some equipment to do particularly the mechanical brushes. Other things that would help education for us was toolbox talks, getting people engaged, thinking through how do we bring the staff with us. We probably could have done that a little bit better in terms of that engagement work. I won't slip past this one, but I will talk through this one. I mean, the biggest barriers, I think, they're probably, I was going to ask you to sort of rank these on the file, but I mean, budget's a big one. I mean, the impact of putting pods on the streets to do work over and above what we normally would do. Public perception is a huge issue in terms of, look at the mess of this place. What are you going to do about it? The political will is a big barrier, but once you've got it, you tend to stick with it. You do start to drive that change. Staffing availability, just like it was all, we are revenue poor in terms of we're having to make cuts. So having staff available to go onto and out onto streets was difficult. And again, just in terms of the equipment, availability of equipment, new equipment, trying new things, innovation, looking for new products, looking for different things. I recall one came off St John's Science Park, which is to treat Japanese knotweed, and it was as big as this table. You moved along, it did about 5 metres squared a day, and it cost you 500 quid for the privilege. So, I mean, we've seen everything from really simple hot air guns through to, I don't know what it was, something you'd probably take on to war with you. Okay. So, what next for us? We are now herbicide-free with a few exceptions. Exceptions being noxious weeds. We've got things like Japanese knotweed, which was discussed, a range of other products. There are sometimes some areas where you have economically you have to go, nah, we don't have to use herbicide here. So it may be particularly new developments where the developer hasn't maintained shrub beds, for example. When you want to start again. The other thing for us is more about the transparency, where we are, methods of working, places we're going next, monthly usage reports, complaint reports, just general data that you report through to your political leadership. And then about collaboration. There's more work to do with other councils. There's certainly more work to do with Cambridge, Pesticide-Free Cambridge. They've now got a new topic, which is antipowders and pyrethroids, which I'm trying to help them with, but it's a bit limited in terms of my work area. But the collaboration, again, another strong point for Cambridge. So, just final thing. It's not. There's no one thing out there that's going to answer everything. There's no golden bullet for you. Some things will work for you, some things won't work for you. I'll touch again on the political leadership, really important. Get your public support. Don't be trying to try things, innovate. Do some visits, come and look for things, just find a way forward. Another thing was, for us, is we're still learning. There's still better methods out there. Staff getting some feedback on some products. So it's all about continual improvement. We'll leave that, and we'll leave it there. Thank you. Work, which includes grass cutting, shrub bed work, and herbicide applications. So the City Council is effectively was their trading partner. So we're doing that work. So we, when we took the decision, ultimately it's their product, it's their asset. It's up to them if they want not to use herbicides. So we persuaded them to allow us to do no herbicide applications, and they were comfortable with that, which then prompted them to go into a broader regional-based response. But of course, that was scaling up far too quick. We'd gone from this to this in a matter of one political decision. And Wisbeach, for instance, the northern parts of the Fens, it just wasn't going to apply there. So the pushback from the county council was, no, we're going back to spraying. And of course we were still trading with them, we are still able to persuade them not to come back into Cambridge. They'll come round Cambridge, but they won't come in.
Okay, so you said that they were applying pesticide or glyphosate within the glyphosate-free wards.
Yeah. So their preferred, I think touched on it, so their preferred method for path repair, minor path repair, is called a slurry top, where you basically spray off the edge and you then put a slurry top over the top. Now they were doing that while we were still doing the trial, and we got our political leaders were really uncomfortable with that and pushed back and didn't want any activity. So then eventually they did agree. So I'm just standing in front of the microphone. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I have a question. You mentioned that you invite other city councils to look for your experiences. So what is the result? Is there a high interest in visiting you and your team, and what is the conclusion when they leave in the afternoon?
So if anyone wants to visit, I've also got an email on here, but I'm sure it'll be circulated. If anyone wants to come, you're more than welcome to. The effective where we are now is no herbicides in the city other than noxious weeds. I mean, the methodology, the work programme is developed. If you want content, just information, the website, we've got some fairly good, strong web pages now on the intranet around things like the business case, the committee decisions, the committee reports, the work programmes on there, even to a point there will be an equalities impact assessment on there. So there's a range of documents for people who want to. And again, my contact details on there as well. So anyone wants to come and visit, please do. But north of the city, so it's not difficult to get into. You don't have to use park and ride, and there's no congestion zones like there is here.
I've got one question about workforce. So I'm from Wigan District Council in East Sussex, and John is one of the contractors who we work with, which is really good. And for many years we've outsourced all of our work to contractors of many district councils. I presume Cambridge City Council is all in-house, is that correct? Yeah. And what's the workforce? How many people are on the ground kind of doing it?
We've got a workforce of, in public realm, there's 90. 90, yeah, 90 staff. So they're not all on street cleaning. So half, I think it's split 40-50 if I remember right. 40 on street cleaning, 50 on grounds maintenance. Yeah.
What was the catalyst that made you decide to move away from herbicides? Because obviously the county council is still using herbicides. So where was the driver for change?
What was the magic moment? Yeah. I think that would be back in 2019, the biodiversity emergency motion at council, spearheaded by an executive council called Alex Collis at the time. She was deputy leader of Cambridge City Council. She managed to get a cross-party agreement to sign that biodiversity motion. That then developed into, with the help of Pesticide-free Cambridge, the pressure to look at the herbicide-free motion, which we then signed off in 2021. So if it's one thing, it was political motivations. There was a politician who decided, no, enough stuff's we're making the move, we're changing.
But the impact on your budgets must be significant because you've got additional equipment, more repetitive operation.
That's why we stepped. Yeah, that's why we did it in small pieces, bit by bit, just to see what is the impact of this decision. Financially, we don't know the extent of it because at the moment it costs us £25,000 to buy a product and £52,000 to put it on the ground. What's that going to cost us now? It is more difficult for us now to quantify because we're doing dual operations. So the deep clean we'd be doing anyway, should be doing anyway, in terms of herbicides and various bits. So the costs probably, if I was to guesstimate it, it's probably doubled. But we were able to buy additional resource and equipment, which then reduces your burden in terms of staff volumes. So mechanisation, acre sweeper, the brushes you'll see out there, they have sped up, particularly our deep clean operation. But big spend, yeah, it was kind of spend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.